Another alcohol ban is not an option, and government must find other ways to manage the high infection rate, according to the Beer Association of South Africa. The CEO, Patricia Pillay, joins me now. I want to talk to her about what she's hoping the President will say in his address at 8 p.m. tonight. Thank you for your time, Patricia. How should the President respond when it comes to managing the issue of alcohol, in your view?
Well, thanks for having me. I think that the listeners and the viewers are probably tired of having us here as the alcohol industry every time there's going to be a president's announcement. And we really are disappointed that this has become, rather than a COVID pandemic, an alcohol pandemic. We really feel like the attention has been taken away from the real issues at hand, and has been made about alcohol when it really isn't. And what we're really hoping tonight is that the President will finally start dealing with the real issues at hand. And I can go into many of those issues, and we see them every day on the news, etc. It's an issue of poverty that we're having in our country, unemployment rates. We have no proper infrastructure in our country. There's people who do not have water, leave alone sanitizers, to even wash their hands. And we don't even want to start talking about the inadequacies in terms of the vaccine rollouts.
But Patricia,
so really
Patricia,
for us,
that sounds
it's
like,
not about the alcohol.
It sounds like a distraction, you naming all of the other issues. We're aware that this country has lots and lots of problems. But why is it that not just government, but also the scientists, the medical scientists that we speak to? I was just speaking to Dr. Aslam Dasu a little while ago on the program, and he was saying one of the things that needs to be controlled and managed is alcohol consumption, because people are not responsible around their alcohol consumption, which means then they stop behaving in the ways that matter and protect themselves and other people. They don't wear their masks, they don't social distance because they're incapable of it, because they're inebriated. Surely there is something that the alcohol industry has to answer for if you want people to protect themselves.
Sure, and we can assure you that we've been going over and beyond to try and spread the message of responsible drinking. And this is not a new problem. We've always had a problem of a binge drinking culture in South Africa. And like I said, this is not going to be solved during COVID. What we have done is try to say to people, drink responsibly, drink at home, drink in a social responsible manner, but most of all, we've encouraged government to continue to restrict gatherings, and that's the solution, we think. To continue to ban an industry that supports livelihoods is not the solution, because the research that has been done by Euromonitor shows that all that happens is it goes into the illicit market, and the illicit market has grown by threefold. So we've lost over 11.8 billion rand to the fiscus, money that could be used for the vaccines rather than criminalizing a legal industry. So I hear the point, and we're not denying that if abused, the substance can be harmful. That's absolutely true. And all we're saying to government is, let's logically deal with this. Continuing to ban us is not going to solve this problem.
You make a very good point about the fact that all that happens is it goes underground. It goes to the illicit dealers. Now, how can you help government deal with that particular problem? Because clearly they don't have that under control. Can you do anything as the legal industry to stop that? Because you're right, it is what will happen.
We've done so much, and that's the frustration that you've heard in my first response, is I really do feel, and I want to stress this point, that we are being used as a scapegoat. Because I can tell you now, we've been on the street, we've all, throughout the manufacturers, have been campaigning, going out, giving flyers, doing trainings to our taverns, to our outlets, to the restaurants, talking about making sure there's social distancing, there's mask wearing. There are few people, and you've seen them showcased, the photos on the front pages, that are not adhering to this. And what we do is we do then stop supply to them as big manufacturers. We've also put out patrollers. Over December, we had 1,000 patrollers on the ground. Over Easter, we had 500 patrollers on the ground, making sure people are compliant. But once again, it's also not our job to do enforcement. Once again, there needs to be proper enforcement by the authorities. And so an industry cannot also be held responsible for the inadequacies that are taking place in our society.
So let's say you are right.
And this is what is going on.
You are right that enforcement is a problem. We just do not have enough police on the street to be able to police effectively that people wear their mask, that they social distance, that they are not inebriated with alcohol. You're right about that. Now, since we can't do that, what other alternatives do we have? Because here's the deal. When people drink on weekends irresponsibly, they clog up hospitals. They clog up trauma units. Those trauma units right now need to be focused on helping people who are in desperate need because of the COVID-19 virus that they had, that they're not responsible for in many cases. So I think that's a big issue for government, is that hospitals get clogged up with people who walk in because they've been in a drunken fight, and they don't want that to happen. How can we change that?
So I think let's talk about that, is that we still don't know how many stats, what stats are we talking about? Once again, this has been an age-old problem, and there's harm reduction programs that are on the go that we're working with government on. So once again, this is not going to be fixed overnight, and we mustn't, kid ourselves about that. This is on the go. We're working with government on a social compact. But had government done their jobs, fixed the hospitals, sorted out the healthcare system, we would not be in this trouble. We've done, as an industry, contributions to setting up NASREC, that facility that is currently not being used. And I asked the question, why not? We've put money towards that. At the beginning of COVID as well, we've done all we can in terms of supplying PPEs and monies to the departments to go out there and make sure that people are protected. We give out masks. We've put posters in outlets. So we have come to the party as business, and all we get in return is being shut down and livelihoods being impacted. So we also need to look and say, wait, hang on a minute. This is an industry who's been responsible, who's out there making a difference and working with the department in terms of providing PPE, providing contributions to healthcare facilities that can be up and running, but they're not up and running. And what's being done with that money? Where's the money that we had contributed for the PPEs? Where's the money that could have been used for vaccine that's now being sent and spent in terms of illicit trade? We've got diplomats who are out there selling illicitly. So it's easy to say, well, alcohol is the problem, but I can assure you it's just a way to deflect from the real inadequacies that are going on at the moment.
So, Patricia, just to round up, what would be your ideal outcome this evening from the President? Very briefly.
Well, sure. So for us, it was concerning to be shut down in the first place at the last announcement. Currently, we are trading on a Monday to Thursday for off consumption. And I think let's just question that. If we're trying to detract people from gathering and drinking at home is the better option, then why is it that the retailers are shut down and you cannot buy your alcohol on a Friday to Sunday and then sit at home and drink? So firstly, we were surprised about that. But in any event, be that as it may, even if it stays that way, that's fine. But to put any harsher restrictions on this is merely, like I said, going to just exacerbate the problem. So in the first place, there should not be any restrictions in terms of this. But gatherings, definitely. Please, let's not have gatherings. It should not be allowed. Let's amp up on the enforcement. We've said this many times as an industry. As I said, we've put the patrollers on the ground. We've really tried over and above to work with community policing as well. We do audits at outlets to ensure people are complying. We are out there on the field making sure people comply, but we can do so much. We don't have law enforcement powers. Can we ramp up on enforcement? And if it means bringing the curfew back, let's do that. Close the country down at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock. It will affect certain of our trade, but at least there'll be certain portions of our trade that are open. Off consumption is then the way to go, because we allow our on-consumption outlets to sell off trade.
Thank you so much for your time. CEO of the Beer Association of South Africa, giving her views on what her expectations are this evening from the President, but also what she says the alcohol industry has done to try and alleviate some of the issues that do arise from consumption, irresponsible consumption in this country. Still to come.